Welcome to episode 35 of our stories called Minnikin. There was once upon a time a couple of needy folk who lived in a wretched hut in which there was nothing but black want, so they had neither food to eat nor wood to burn. But if they had next to nothing of all else, they had the blessing of God so far as children were concerned. And every year brought them one more. The man was not overly pleased by this. He was always going about grumbling and growling, and saying that it seemed to him that there might be such a thing as having too many of these good gifts. So shortly before another baby was born, he went into the wood for some firewood, saying he did not want to see the new child. He would hear him quite soon enough when he began to squall for some food. But as soon as this baby was born, it began to look about the room. "Ah, dear mother," said he, "give me some of my brother's old clothes and food enough for a few days, and I will go out into the world and seek my fortune. For as far as I can see, you have children enough." "Heaven help thee, son," said the mother, "that will never do. Thou art still far too little." But the little creature was determined to do it, and begged and prayed so long as the mother was forced to let him have some old rags, and tied up a little food for him, and then gaily and happily he went out into the world. But almost before he was out of the house, another boy was born, and he too looked about and said, "Ha, my dear mother, give me some of my brother's old clothes and food for some days, and I'll go out into the world and find my twin brother, for you have children enough." "Heaven help thee, little creature, thou art far too little for that," said the woman. "It would never do." But she spoke to no purpose, for the boy begged and prayed until he got some of the old rags and a bundle of provisions, and then set out manfully into the world to find his twin brother. When the younger had walked for some distance, he caught sight of his brother a short distance in front of him, and called him and bade him stop. "Wait a minute," he said. "You're walking as if for a wager, but you ought to have stayed to see your younger brother before you hurried off into the world." So the elder stood still and looked back, and when the younger had got up to him and had told him that he was his brother, he said, "But now let us sit down and see what kind of food our mother has given us." And that they did. When they walked on a little further, they came to a brook which ran through a green meadow, and there the younger said that they ought to christen each other. "And as well make haste, and had no time to do it at home, we may as well do it here," said he. "What will you be called?" said the other. "I will be called Minnikin," answered the second. "And you, what will you be called?" "I will be called King Pippin." They christened each other, and they went onwards. When they had walked for some time, they came to a crossway, and there they agreed to part, and each to take his own road. This they did, but no sooner had they walked a short distance than they met again. So they parted once more, and each took his own road, but in a very short time the same thing happened again. They met each other before they were all aware, and so it happened the third time also. Then they arranged with each other that each should choose his own quarter, and one should go to the east, another to the west. "But if ever you fall into any need or trouble," said the elder, "call me thrice, and I will come to help you. Only you must not call me until you're in the most utmost need." "In which case we shall not see it for some time," said Minnikin. So they bade farewell to each other, and Minnikin went east, and King Pippin went west. When Minnikin had walked a long way, he met an old crook-back hag who had only one eye, and Minnikin stole it. "Not very nice Minnikin, hey?" "Oh, oh!" cried the old hag, "what has become of my eye?" "What will you give me to get your eye back?" "I will give you a sword, which is such a sword it can conquer a whole army, be it ever so great," replied the woman. And the old hag gave him the sword, and he got her eye back. And then Minnikin went on and wandered for some time, and met an old crook-back had only one eye. Minnikin stole it as before she was aware. "What has become of my eye?" said the old hag. "What will you give me to get your eye back?" said Minnikin. "I'll give thee a ship which can sail over water and over air, over high hills and deep dales," answered the old hag. "Let me have it then," said Minnikin. So the woman gave him a little bit of a ship, which was no bigger than he could put in his pocket, and she got her eye back, and she went on her way, and Minnikin in his. When he had walked on for a long time, he met the third time an old crook-back hag who had only one eye. This eye also Minnikin stole, and when the woman screamed and lamented and asked what had become of her eye, Minnikin said, "What will you do to get your eye back?" "I'll give thee art to brew 100 lasts of malt in one evening." That's a kind of beer car. So for the teaching art, the old hag got her eye back, and they both went away by different roads. When Minnikin had walked a short distance, it seemed to him that it might be worth to see what his ship could do. So he took it out of his pocket, and when he first put one foot on it, then the other. No sooner did he put one foot into the ship than it became much larger, and when he set the other foot into it, it grew as large as the ships that sail on the sea. Then Minnikin said, "Now go over fresh water and salt water, over high hills and deep dales, and do not stop until thou comest to the king's palace." And in an instant the ship went away as swiftly as any bird in the air, till it got just below the king's palace, and there it stood still. From the windows of the king's palace many persons had seen Minnikin come sailing thither, and he had stood to watch them, and they were all so astounded they ran down to see what manner of man this could be, who came sailing in a ship through the air. But while they were running down from the king's palace, Minnikin got out of the ship and had put it in his pocket again, for the moment he got out of it, it once more became as small as it had been when he got it from the old woman. And those who came running from the king's palace could see nothing but a ragged little boy who was standing down by the seashore. The king asked where he had come from, but the boy said he did not know, nor could he yet tell them how he had got there. But he begged very earnestly and prettily for a place in the king's palace. If there was nothing else for him to do, he said he would fetch wood and water for the kitchen maid, and that he obtained leave to do. When Minnikin went up to the king's palace, he saw that everything there was hung with black, both outside and inside, from the bottom to the top. So asked the kitchen maid what it meant. "Oh, I will tell you that," answered the kitchen maid. "The king's daughter was long ago promised away to 3 trolls, and next Thursday evening one has come to fetch her. Red has said he will set her free, but who knows whether he will really be able to do it." So you may easily imagine what grief and distress we are here. For the record, called Ritter is a German word for knight. It's got the same meaning as rider. So when evening came, Ritter Red accompanied the princess to the seashore, and there she is to meet the troll, and Ritter Red was to stay with her and protect her. He, however, was very unlikely to do the troll much injury, for no sooner had the princess seated herself by the seashore than Ritter Red climbed up a great tree that was standing, then hid himself as well he could in the branches. And the princess wept and begged him most earnestly not to go and leave her, but Ritter Red did not concern himself about that. "It is better one should die than two," said he. In the meantime, Minnikin had begged the kitchen maid very prettily to give him leave to go down to the strand for a short time. "But what could you do down at the strand?" said the kitchen maid. "You have nothing to do then." "Oh yes, my dear, just let me go," said Minnikin. "I should so like to go and amuse myself with other children." Well, go down then," said the kitchen maid. "But don't let me find you staying there over the time when the pan has to be set on the fire for supper, and the roast put on the spit, and mind you bring back a good armful of wood for the kitchen." And just as he got to the place where the king's daughter was sitting, the troll came rushing up with a big whistling and whirling, and he was so big and stout he was terrible to see, and he had 5 heads. "Fire!" screeched the troll. "Fire yourself," said Minnikin. "Can you fight?" roared the troll. "If not, I can learn," said Minnikin. So the troll struck at him with a great thick iron bar which he had in his fist, till the sods flew 5 feet into the air. "Fire!" said Minnikin. "That was not much of a blow. Now you shall have one of mine." So he grasped the sword which he had got from the old crook-back woman and slashed the troll, so all 5 heads went flying away over the sands. When the princess saw she was delivered, she was so delighted that she didn't know what she was doing, and skipped and danced. "Come and sleep a bit with your head in my lap," she said to Minnikin, and as he slept she put a little golden dress on him. But when Ritter Red saw there was no longer any danger afoot, he lost no time in creeping down from the tree. He then threatened the princess, until at length she was forced to promise that it was he who had rescued her, for he told her if he did not he would kill her. Then he took the troll's lungs and tongue, and he put them in his pocket handkerchief, and led the princess back to the king's palace. And whatsoever had been lacking him in the way of honour before was lacking no longer, for the king did not know how to exalt him enough, and always set him on his own right hand at table. And as for Minnikin, first he went on the troll's ship and took a great quantity of gold and silver hoops away with him, and then he trotted back to the king's palace. I like Minnikin here. When the kitchen maid caught sight of all this gold and silver, she was quite amazed, and said, "My dear friend Minnikin, where have you got all that from?" For he was half afraid he had not come by it honestly. "Oh," answered Minnikin, "I've been home a while, and while these hoops had fallen off some of our own buckets, so I brought them with me for you." So when the kitchen maid heard they were for her, she asked no more questions about them. She thanked Minnikin, and all was right again. And next Thursday evening everything went just the same, and everyone was full of grief and affliction. But Ritter Red, he said he'd been to deliver the king's daughter from one troll, so he could very easily deliver from another, and he led her down to the seashore. But he did not know much harm to this whole troll either, for when the time came, the troll might be expected, he said as he had before, better for one to die than two, and he climbed up into the tree again. Minnikin once more begged the cook's leave to go down to the seashore for a short time. "What can you do there?" said the cook. "My dear, do let me go," said Minnikin. "I should so like to go down there and amuse myself a little with the other children." So this time she said he should have leave to go, but he must first promise he would bring back, by the time the joint was turned, and that he'd bring back a great armful of wood with him. No sooner had Minnikin got down to the strand than the troll came rushing with a great whistling and whirring, and he was twice as big as the first troll. He had 10 heads. And "Fire!" shrieked the troll. "Fire yourself," said Minnikin. "Can you fight?" roared the troll. "If not, I can learn," said Minnikin. So the troll struck at him with his iron club, which was bigger than the one the first troll had, so the earth flew 10 yards up in the air. "Fie," said Minnikin. "That was not much of a blow. Now you shall see one of my blows." Then he grasped the sword and struck at the troll until all 10 of his heads danced away on the sands. And again the king's daughter said to him, "Sleep a while in my lap." And when Minnikin lay there, she drew some milk raiment over him. And as soon as Ritter Red saw there was not any danger afoot, he crept down from the tree and threatened the princess, until at last she was again forced to promise to say that it was he who had rescued her, after which he took the tongue and lungs of the troll, and put them in his pocket handkerchief, and then he conducted the princess back to the palace. There was a joy and a gladness in the palace, as may be imagined. The king did not know how to show enough honour and respect to Ritter Red. Minnikin, however, took home with him an armful of gold and silver hoops from the troll's ship. When he came back to the king's palace, the kitchen maid clapped her hands and wondered where he got all this gold and silver. But Minnikin answered that he'd been home for a short time, it was only the hoops that had fallen off some piles, and he had brought them for away for the kitchen maid. And when the third Thursday evening came, everything happened exactly as before occasions. Everyone in the king's palace was hung with black, and everyone was sorrowful and distressed. But Ritter Red said did not think he had much more reason to be afraid. He had delivered the king's daughter from 2 trolls, so he could easily deliver from the third as well. And he led her down to the strand. But when time came for the troll to come near, he straight up the tree and hid himself. And the princess wept and entreated him to say, but all to no purpose. He stuck to his old speech. It's better that 1 life should be lost than 2. And this evening also Minnikin begged for leave to go down to the seashore. What can you do there? Answered the kitchen maid. However, he begged until last he got leave to go, but was forced to promise he'd be back in time for when the roast had to be turned. And almost immediately after he got down to the seashore, the troll came with a great whizzing and whirling, much bigger than old 2 or 4 ones, and he had 15 heads, Carl. Fire! Roared the troll. Fire yourself, said Minnikin. Can you fight? Screamed the troll. If not, I can learn. I will teach you, yelled the troll, and struck at him with his iron club, so the earth flew up 15 yards high in the air. Fie, said Minnikin, that was not much of a blow. Now I'll let you see one of my blows. So saying, he grasped his sword and cut at the troll in such a way that all 15 of his heads danced away over the sands. Then the princess was delivered, and she thanked Minnikin and blessed him for saving her. Sleep a while now in my lap, said she, and while he lay there she put on a garment of brass upon him. But now, how shall we have it made known that it was you who saved me, said the king's daughter. This I will tell you, answered Minnikin. When Ritter Red has taken you home again, and given out that he was rescued, he will, as you know, have you to wife, and half the kingdom. But when they ask on your wedding day who will have you be a cupbearer, you say, I must have the ragged boy who's in the kitchen and carries wood and water for the kitchen maid. When I'm filling your cups for you, I must spill a drop upon his plate, but none upon yours, and then he'll be angry and strike me, and this will take place thrice. But the third time you must say, Shame on you thus to smite the beloved of mine heart. It is he that delivered me from the troll, and it is he whom I will have. Then Minnikin ran back to the king's palace as he did before, but first, you guessed it, went aboard the troll ship and took a great handful and quantity of gold and silver and other precious things. One of these he once more gave to the kitchen maid, and a whole armful of gold and silver hoops. No sooner did Ritter Red see that the danger was over, that he crept down from the tree, threatened the king's daughter. You know how this goes, Carl. Anyway, on to the wedding day. On the wedding day, however, the princess begged that she might have the little boy who was in the kitchen and carried wood and water for the kitchen maid to fill wine cups for the feast. Oh, what can you want with that dirty, ragged boy? Said Ritter Red. But the princess insisted on having him as her cupbearer and would have no one else unless she got leave. Everything was done had been agreed on. He spilt a drop on Ritter Red's plate, but none upon hers, and each time he did that, Ritter Red fell into a rage and struck him. At the first blow, all the ragged garments which had worn in the kitchen fell off Minnikin. Second blow, the brass garments went off. And the third, the silver raiment. And there he stood in the gold raiment, which was so bright and splendid that light flashed from it. Remember, the gold one was given to him by the princess. Then the king's daughter said, Shame on you to thus strike the beloved of my heart. It is he who delivered me from the troll, and it is he whom I will have. Ritter Red swore that he was the man who had saved her, but the king said, He who delivered my daughter must have some token and proof of it. So Ritter Red went off once with his handkerchief with the lungs and tongue, and Minnikin went and brought all the gold and silver and precious things he'd taken out of the troll ships, and each lays these tokens before the king. He who has such precious things in gold and silver and diamonds, said the king, must be the one who killed the troll, for such things are not to be had anywhere else. So Ritter Red was thrown in the snake pit, and Minnikin was to have the princess and half the kingdom. Well, normally the story would stay there, but this keeps going. One day the king went out walking with Minnikin, and Minnikin answered, I never had any other children. Yes, said the king, I had another daughter, but the troll carried her away because no one who could deliver her. You are going to have one daughter of mine, but if you can free the other who has been taking the troll, you shall have her too, and the other half of the kingdom as well. So Minnikin would become king. I may as well make the attempt, said Minnikin, but I must have an iron rope which is 500 ells long, and then I must have 500 men with me, and provisions for 5 weeks, for I have a long voyage ahead of me. So the king said he should have all these things, but the king was afraid that he had no ship large enough to carry them. But I have a ship of my own, said Minnikin, and he took out the one which the old woman out of his pocket. The king laughed and thought it was only one of his jokes, but Minnikin begged him to give just what he'd asked for, and he should see something. Then all that Minnikin had asked for was brought, and first he ordered him to lay the cable in the ship. But there was no one who was able to lift it, and there was only room for 1 or 2 men at a time in a little bit of ship. Then Minnikin himself took hold of the cable and laid 1 or 2 links into the ship, and as he threw the links into it, the ship grew bigger and bigger and bigger, until it was at last so large that the cable and the 500 men and provisions and Minnikin himself had room enough. Now go over fresh water and salt water, over hill and dale, and do not stop until thou comest to where the king's daughter is, said Minnikin to the ship, and off it went in a moment over land and water until the wind whistled and moaned all around about it. And when they had sailed thus a long, long way, the ship stopped short in the middle of the sea. Ah, now we've got there, said Minnikin, but how to get back? That's a very different thing. Then he took out the cable and tied one end round his body. Now I must go to the bottom, he said, but when I give a good jerk to the cable and want to come up again, you must all pull like one man, or there'll be end of life for both you and me. So he sprang into the water, and yellow bubbles rose up around him. He sank lower and lower, and at last came to the bottom. Then he saw a large hill with a door in it, and in he went. And when he got inside, he found the other princess sitting and sewing, but when she saw Minnikin, she clapped her hands. Heaven be praised, she cried, I have not seen a Christian man since I came here. I have come for you, said Minnikin. Alas, you'll not be able to get me, said the king's daughter. It's no use even to think of it. If the troll catches sight of you, he will take your life. You'd better tell me about him, said Minnikin. Where has he gone? It will be amusing to see him. So the king's daughter told Minnikin that the troll was out trying to get hold of someone who could brew 100 lasts of malt at one brewing. But there was to be a feast at the troll's, at which less than that would not be drunk. I can do that, said Minnikin. If only the troll were not so quick-tempered. I might have told him that, answered the princess, but he's so ill-natured he will tear you to pieces, I fear, as soon as he comes in. But I will try to find some way of doing it. Can you hide yourself here in the cupboard? Then we will see what will happen. Minnikin did this, and before he had crept into the cupboard and hidden himself came the troll. Huff! What a smell of Christian man's blood, said the troll. Yes, a bird flew in over the roof with a Christian man's bone in his bill, and flew to fall down our chimney, answered the princess. It makes haste to get away again, and it must be that which smells so, notwithstanding. Yes, must be that, said the troll. Now the princess asked if he got hold of anyone who could brew 100 lasts of malt at one brewing. No, there's no one who can do it. A short time ago there was a man here said who could do it, said the king's daughter. How clever you are, said the troll. How could you let him go away? You must have known that I'm wanting a man of that kind. Well, but I didn't let him go after all, said the princess. But father's so quick-tempered, so I hid him in the cupboard. But if father's not found out, then let the man... anyone, then the man is still there. Let him come in, said the troll. When Minnikin came, the troll asked if it were true he could brew 100 lasts of malt at one sitting. Yes, said Minnikin, it is. It is well then that I have lighted upon thee, said the troll. Fall to work this very minute, but heaven help thee if thou does not brew the ale strong. Oh, it shall taste well, said Minnikin, and once set him forth work to brew. But I must have more trolls to carry what is wanted, said Minnikin. These I have are good for nothing. So he got more, and so many that there was a swarm of them, and the brewing went on. When the sweet wort was all ready, they were, as a matter of course, anxious to taste it, and the first troll himself and the others, but Minnikin had brewed the wort so strong they all fell down like so many flies as soon as they had drunk any of it. And at last there was no one left but one wretched old hag who was hiding behind the stove. Oh, you poor creature, said Minnikin, you shall have a taste of the wort too, like the rest. So he went away and scooped a little from the bottom in a vat in a milk pan and gave it to her, and then he was quit of the whole of them. Minnikin was now standing there, looking about him, and cast his eyes upon a large chest. This he took and filled with gold and silver, and then tied a cable round himself and the princess and the chest, and tugged at the rope with all his might, whereupon his men drew him all the way up, safe and sound. And as soon Minnikin had got safe in the ship, he said, Now go over salt water and fresh water, over hill and dale, and do not stop until thou comest in the king's palace. And in a moment the ship went off so fast that yellow foam rose up all around it. When Minnikin was now standing there looking about him, he cast his eye on a large chest. This he took and filled with gold and silver, and then he tied the cable round himself and the princess and the chest, and tugged at the rope with all his might, whereupon his men drew them up safe and sound. And as soon as Minnikin had got safely on his ship again, he said, Now go over fresh water and salt water, over hill and dale, and do not stop until thou comest to the king's palace. And in a moment the ship went off so fast the yellow foam rose all around it. And when those who were in the king's palace saw the ship, they lost no time in going to meet him with song and with music, and thus they marched up towards Minnikin with great rejoicings. But gladdest of all was the king, for now he had got his other daughter back again. But Minnikin was not happy, for both the princesses wanted to have him, and he wanted to have none other than the one whom he had first saved, and she was the younger. For this cause he was continually walking backwards and forward, thinking how he could try to get her, and yet do nothing that was in kind to assist her. One day when he was walking about thinking this, it came to his mind only his brother, King Pippin, with him, who was so like himself that no one could distinguish the one from the other, and he could let him have the elder princess and half the kingdom, and as for himself he thought the other half quite enough. And as soon as this thought occurred to him, he went outside the palace and called for King Pippin, but no one came. And he called a second time, but still and louder, and lo, no one came. So Minnikin called for the third time, and with all his might, and there stood his brother by his side. I told you not to call upon me unless you were in the utmost need, he said to Minnikin. And there's not even so much as a single midge here can do you any harm. With that he gave Minnikin such a blow that he rolled over in the grass. Shame on you to strike me, said Minnikin. First I've won one princess in half the kingdom, and then the other princess in the other half of the kingdom. And now I was just thinking I would give you one of the princesses in the other half of the kingdom. Do you think you have any reason to give me such a blow? When King Pippin heard this, he begged his brother's pardon, and they reconciled at once, and became good friends, Carl. And now, as you know, said Minnikin, we are so like to each other, no one can tell which of us from the other. So just change clothes with me and go to the palace. Tell the princes I think I am coming in, and the one who kisses you first shall be yours, and I will have the other. For he knew well the elder princess was the stronger, and he could very well guess how things would go. Now King Pippin once agreed to this. He changed clothes and went up into the palace. When he entered the princess's apartment, they believed he was Minnikin, and both of them ran up to him at once. But the elder was big and stronger, pushed her sister aside, and threw her arms around King Pippin's neck and kissed him. So he got her to wife, and Minnikin the younger sister. It was easy to understand then that two weddings took place, and they were so magnificent they were well regarded and talked about all over the seven kingdoms. The end, Carl. This one, I don't know, it's almost like there's three different stories in one. One is the stories of the twins who are separated at such a young age. The second is fighting the first batch of trolls. And then there's the third troll. I really like this one. I hope you did too. Until tomorrow, my shots.